This is the new KENWOOD NXR-1700 repeater, and it's a very small compact repeater and is the replacement for the TKRD repeaters here. Now, the first thing you notice with this, it's more like the size of a mobile than a repeater, but it is 25 watts continuous and 50 watts at 50% duty cycle, which is more than enough for most people. It's a very compact design, so on the front we've got a nice OLED display, a multifunction button here, Ethernet connector and a USB connector. On the rear of it we have a BNC for receive, an N-type for transmit, and it still has the standard D-type 25-pin connector that you find on other KENWOOD base stations with the same pin assignments. The nice thing about this base station is its small size, but if you're mounting in a 19-inch rack enclosure, that could be a problem. But KENWOOD have solved this because we have included the ears for this and also this double length one here. Now that can be connected to the side of the base station. Alternately, this small metal bracket is also available which connects on here, which allows you to put two of the base stations into a single 1U rack. On the front of the radio we have an Ethernet connector. What we don't have is a programming connector, and that's because this base station is programmed exclusively over IP. Now, the nice thing is that you can plug an Ethernet cable directly into your PC because the port will auto-assign. And you can then use a web browser for a lot of the changes, or you can also use KPG D7, the new programming software, specifically for this device. One of the problems with IP programming is you quite often forget the IP address. So the OLED display on the front allows you to very easily recover that. So simply pushing the button, selecting network info and pushing return, and then it displays the IP address. Once you have that, you can then literally type that in to your web browser. This is the web interface for the NXR-1700, and as you can see, it gives you a basic overview. You also have programming software, which is KPG D7, and KPG D7 gives you a lot more features and functions. But the web browser interface will allow you to easily do maintenance and monitoring. The NXR-1700 is very IP-centric, and there's a lot of features and functions within the radio to do with IP that are really very useful. The most notable is that it has the same standard built-in interface as found with the KTI-5 within its predecessor, and all of that functionality is built in. So a digital wide area system, which can be up to 16 repeaters or even more depending on configuration, is just available. One of the nice things that we've added is the ability to do this with analog repeaters. So you can now take a number of these repeaters, connect them over an IP link and run them in analog mode. And that will give you a wide area system with no extra components. On top of the wide area systems, you also have the ability to run a voice dispatcher such as CAS20 or other third-party voice dispatchers. It has built-in recording, and that's very simple. You simply put in an IP address and a port number and it will deliver G711 RTP to that particular location. And you have up to 10 clients for IP and 10 streams for recording. It also has a standard hot standby arrangement, and this allows you to have two of these base stations which are connected together over IP, and if one fails, the other one will take over, or you can manually switch that over, and again over IP, simply from the web interface. This allows you to manually switch from repeater 1 to repeater 2 should you wish to do some maintenance, or to have it automatically switch as and when one fails. It also has capability to work with the syslog server, and this obviously aids the ability to not only record what's going on in this box, but on lots of other boxes across your system. Remote monitoring and control is done through the web interface, and that is a very simple process. We're now looking at the web interface, and as we log on, it comes up on the main page, and you can see from the main page that it gives you an overview of the repeater and what's going on. But what is far more interesting is to go to the maintenance section, and we can then go to monitor. So as I key up a test radio here, we can see on the display that the call has come up, the duration, the source ID, the call type, a group in this case, and the destination ID 101. This allows you to see calls in real time, very, very quickly and easily. And if you have both time slots active, you'd see 2 calls. If we now switch to the status monitor and do the same thing again, we can see that now we are actually displaying what's going on within the repeater itself. So as I key up now, we're seeing the same call coming up, but now from a different perspective, because we're seeing the VSWR, we're seeing that the repeater is working correctly, we're seeing the output power, and in this particular case it's turned down for testing purposes to 900 milliwatts. Our power supply is 13.2 volts. All of that information is available to you. One of the other new features within the repeater is the ability to download directly from the repeater a small application which will allow you to connect to the repeater and make and receive audio calls. To do this, click Field Support and then Test Console. The download page will appear and you simply download this. Once the test console is downloaded, you can simply click on it within Windows and it will open. It will ping up your Windows Defender and you must allow access. It often complains it's unable to make settings because the Windows Defender is still active. And if you simply click Settings here and check, the console IP address is the address of the PC that you're using. The console ID is set within the repeater, and currently this is set for 10,001. This is the repeater IP address, and then we want to make a group to 101 on slot 1 and save this, correct. We can then push PTT and the call will come up, relieve PTT. If we now go back to the monitor and call monitor, we can then push PTT and watch the call come up within the monitor and watch the call come up in the reverse direction. So we can see we've got a call from IP address 100. We can also switch from watching a call to manipulating the repeater. Simply switching to remote control allows us to then adjust various parameters within the repeater itself. And this is much quicker and easier than using the FPU, although it has a limited availability of things that can be changed. The 25-pin D connector on the rear of the radio is the same as used on other KENWOOD base stations, so that will allow us to plug in any existing equipment, in this case a small desktop controller using 4-wire E&M 600 ohm. With that, you can also have that working in analog, and it will also work in digital. And this is a digital call, 123. Reverse calls go in the other direction, push PTT, and you can see the display here will display external PTT has been asserted. The NXR-1700 will work in digital, analog or mixed mode. So if we have a mixed mode terminal configuration here, and on this radio in analog mode, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, when I'm keying up in analog, you'll see that 2 transmit and 2 receive lights are coming on. If I let that call drop out and then go to a digital call, radio engineers test, you'll hear the wake up on the radio and you'll see the particular time slot LEDs there are illuminated. This allows you to mix analog and digital. Obviously, when you're using an analog call, you're going to take both time slots, but when you're using digital, you have 2 time slots available. The great thing about the way that this is set up is if you have customers who have an existing analog fleet, you can change out from one of our early base stations, connect existing equipment that was there, and then take advantage of going to DMR or NXDN digital. When you move to digital, you gain a lot of advantages from that, but mostly the fact that you can now increase the range, because range will go up about 3 dB if you go to DMR, and an additional nearly 3 dB if you were to move to NXDN. With a DMR system, you have 2 time slots available, and groups can use them. Now, if you have 2 groups, you have 2 time slots. so that works out well. As soon as you have more groups than you have time slots, then what you need to do is dynamically allocate the time slot to the group that wishes to place a call. And that's what's done within the KENWOOD portfolio. On top of that, you can also have different priority levels. So if we have a standard call going on and we add a persistent call, so if I key up this radio here, this radio is now in a call, I can key up another radio with a persistent group call, and that will then immediately come through to this radio. On top of that, you can add an all call and then an emergency call on top of that. So the way that those respond can be very different. And as you can hear, the persistent group call has got a different ringtone, so users understand that that's a higher priority call that's coming in. The NXR-1700 is the beginning of a new series of base stations. We will be adding the NXR-1800, which is the UHF version. We will be adding NXDN and various other protocols over time. And the best way to find out which features and functions have been added is to contact the KENWOOD sales team or technical support team, who will know which ones are available, and if not available, when they will become available. This is a very heavily software orientated product, so a lot of features and functions can be added and will be added over time.